Hi. Today we'll be continuing with some pointers in C. So this is the continuation of the C video tutorials. We'll be working with. This is the last file pointer example, I believe. The other ones that I have are the examples are kind of broken, so we already kind of went through the different types of file opening, except for binary, which we will actually have that one more example later on. But that's going to be a long example because that's like a project, so that'll be like an hour or two, probably an hour, because at that point I'll already just be copying it out. Once I've written it, I haven't written it, so so it's gonna just be written out. I've already worked on it, so we'll just be working on that later on. In this video we'll also be doing structures. We'll be working on structures, so this might be a longer video. We'll have just the basic structures, and then we'll have, is there 2 ways to do that? Yes there is, that's okay. So we will, sorry, you guys probably are like, what is he talking about? I'm just looking at my notes, apologize. So we have a user-defined structure, and then we'll have a structures with pointers example, and then we will have maybe do a example to a referential structures to do with trees. If you're going to do a tree in C, how would you do it? We probably won't be getting into depth because this isn't a data structure series minus like the arrays and pointer stuff. We've done in-depth trees, which I've been uploading in Java, so it's pretty much the same minus like pointer stuff. We won't be getting into it too much, it's not too hard, but we'll do a little example just to show you how it works. And then I think we might be continuing with that actually, because then we have a type def example that's kind of to do with trees and nodes. Then we got union, and that's pretty much it. So we won't be doing all that in this video. We're going to try to do as much as we can, so let's just say we're going to try to do that. If not, we'll save that for 2 videos. So to start, let's start with the pointers example. That isn't very hard, so we've already kind of worked with this in the last video. So let us just start with this. So we'll have 2 file pointers. So we'll say we'll have a file pointer in and a file pointer out. And we'll have a char C. Great, I removed the file path. Okay, that's okay. So hopefully my file path is correct because I've deleted it. So we're going to use file paths in this again. So instead of, because internally the files aren't working, .dat, .txt isn't working in the IDE folder. Again, you can't see any input. Also, if you've been following my videos, you won't be able to see any input in the IDE itself. This is due to a glitch in CLine. You're going to need to run it in external console. In the external console, that way a new window will pop up. It looks like a command prompt window, and that'll show your output. I'll try to explain what the output is. So here we'll just have the file pointer in pointing to, we'll call fopen. We'll say in points to fopen, then here we'll put the file path, so we'll say I'll just do this for a Windows PC, so C shift semicolon 2 backslashes, or is that a forward slash? Yeah, forward slashes. That's the slash above enter on a keyboard. The one with the OR, that's tagged on with the OR. If you want OR, then you have to go shift that button. So yeah, so C users and the PC name. Then we'll have where the what was this? fopen. Okay, so we have desktop. And for this to work, you actually have to create a file on your desktop. So you can create the file to be called infile.txt. And then after that, we'll just have the read mode. So you're going to need to put this infile.txt on your desktop. Create that because that's input, so we're going to create a file pointer to input. The input needs to be already there to read. So make sure you have that file on your desktop or whatever folder you want, documents or whatever. You're going to have to change this to documents if you want that. Wherever you want it, whatever drive you want it, whatever folder and all that, you're going to have to change it if you're changing it around. So what we're going to do is actually, on top of that, put some stuff in that file, like just type a bunch of stuff. And then make sure it's lowercase because we're going to convert everything to uppercase. That's the that's the purpose of this code. So in the last video we showed how to read the data, append the data, how to add data to the file, all that stuff. So if you haven't seen that, see the previous video in this series. I'll be uploading them to the playlist. So then after that we'll have out points to fOpen again. So we're going to say, okay, we're going to want the file pointer in to point to the fOpen function, which is going to open our file, which we have the file path as a string, comma, we have another string with the mode. If you can see the hints in the IDE, one says file name, one says mode. I'm not sure if the camera will pick that up. So then we have the other file pointer pointing to fOpen. And here we'll just be opening the other file, which I don't think it needs to be created, but if it doesn't work, then just create it. So obviously we're just going to have the out file.txt instead. And then this time the only difference is that we're going to have the write mode instead, so you can signal that with a W in the string. And then we'll just have the while loop at this point, so we'll just move that up. So now we'll have the while loop to read the data, so we'll have while our character C is equal to fgetc, because fgetc is going to just be like getC, which is pretty much like getChar, so they're all the same. So file just means file stream, so or like file. So it's going to be working with a special file library. So it's going to get the character from the file. So that's what file fgetc does. I've explained it in the previous video. So here we're just going to pass the file pointer in, and then here we'll have does not equal to EOF. And here we'll have fputc. There is an fputc, okay, because my professor has these examples with just getC and putc, and it didn't work that way. So we'll have actually it did, but it gave me like these weird symbols. I think that might have been it. So hopefully it doesn't do that now. So here we'll have fputc, and then we'll say to upper. You need that c type.h, I think, for this function. Then we'll pass in c and then say dot out. Actually, nope, comma out, because we want the file pointer to send the to upper, passing in c to out, to the file pointer out. And then we'll call the fclose function and then we'll call the so close the input stream for the in pointer, and then close the output stream for the out pointer. Remember to close the file streams at the end, and then we'll just save that and run it, and it should work. So there should be a file that converted everything to uppercase. Hopefully it doesn't show you the yeah, so it's finished with exit code 0, so it looks like it should have worked. Hopefully it didn't give you symbols as well. So that's about all it is for this. We don't really... Could we maybe see what's happening with some breakpoints? So we'll just set some breakpoints and see what kind of data we get in our local variables. So we have in pointing to F open. We will execute that line by hitting the step over button. So now we have in pointing to shouldn't have been null. Yeah, did I put input? You know what? I apologize. I have input file.txt. So you can change that too if you want. Input file.txt, we'll rerun that. Debug that, apologize. There we go. Is that not null anymore? Okay, there we go. It is still null. It's still null? It can't be because it's input. No, you know what? I have input.txt. I apologize. Output.txt. I totally apologize. So if you want to change it, you can. If not, just name them whatever you want. Make sure they correspond to what's on your desktop though, because that shouldn't be null. Oh, I should have saved it. Okay. In. It shouldn't be null now. Maybe because there's nothing inside. There should be. I can't really change. I'm gonna tell you though that it works unless it's a glitch, because I already checked it before I tested the code before I wrote them. And if I click my desktop, it's going to stop the video. Unless I did the path wrong. C users name desktop input.txt read mode out. It could just be pointing to null currently because I have that file on the desktop for sure. So it should work. Don't worry about that. It will work as long as you have the input.txt on your desktop. Because we have fopen file name. Yeah, so that should work. Excuse me. Just make sure you have that. Make sure you have that file on your desktop. Excuse me. Output you might need on your desktop, maybe not. Apologize. My throat's getting all clammy. So we have, you might need that file output.txt on your desktop. If not, you can try it without, because it should, in write mode, it should just write to that file. So anyways, let's just continue with that. So we'll step in. What happened to that? While so while C, we have char C, yeah, while C points to fgetc, passing in does not equal to EOF, fputc to upper C passing, so fputc to upper, did I have, that had no quotes on it. I mean, that had no, yeah, I had no parentheses separating, square brackets separating that loop. But that's okay, so then so yeah, that should be fine. Close the stream and close the out stream as well. So that should be good. So there's no error. If there was error, there is an error there, should tell us. So yes, everything should be converted to uppercase. Check the file. When I did check, I did have symbols, but I thought that was because my professor used getc, so I changed it to fgetc, so I was thinking that would be changed. So hopefully that does change and that works. It should, because we have the file. We just worked with them last time and it was working because I checked the files. All the data was in there, and we read from the files too, so all that was working. So we have our file pointer in file with capital, yeah, that's fine. Asterisk in, comma, asterisk out, yeah. Character C, yeah. In points to F open with our path, yeah, that should be good. C, users, PC name, desktop, file, input.txt, unless I named it wrong, but it should be input.txt, comma, read mode, yeah, and then out, the pointer out points to F open, path, should be the same thing, write mode, then while C points to fgetc, passing in the file pointer in, does not equal to EOF, fputc to upper, passing in C and then out. Yeah, that should work. So we're just gonna leave it at that. So now we'll work with some. So we'll finally work with some structures. So we will now move on to creating a structure. So the way to do that is we will actually have to make this smaller because we're gonna have to go be above main here. So we'll take all that out. Hopefully you guys enjoyed learning pointers. I know they can be a little bit hard at first. Once you start to work with them, you kind of practice them more, then they become more familiar. So above main, we're going to have a struct. So we're going to say struct, like this. How do you spell it like that? Struct. There we go, it's giving us the IntelliSense, if you guys can see that. Or a C-line sense. So we'll say struct, we'll call it database. So I guess there's no semicolon, except for that one on the end there, outside the bracket, so that's a little different than normal, so just remember that. Kind of like, I know JavaFX does that a lot. I feel like something in Java did that too. XML doesn't really use semicolons. Anyway, so we'll talk about this stuff later. So we will, we'll have an int here, we'll call it ID number. So why do you use structs? Usually they can help us like group data together. It's kind of a way to create a class in this language where we don't have classes or objects, so it's kind of a way to create an object. It's basically a way to create a class and to be able to define objects. Because this lower level language C doesn't have objects and classes, so it's kind of like an object-oriented way, which kind of allowed C++ to evolve. So we'll have, so what can structs help us with? Well, let's say you're signing up a user for your app or something. And we can say that the user has like an ID number. Like, you know, they have all their data and like name, address, birth date, whatever. If you need more data like bank cards and stuff. Maybe you need your care card, like your health cards, your health numbers. Maybe you need driver's license, so you can put all these like fields in the struct. Then every struct you have, you can name them and change, and each one will have like an ID number, will have an age and like a salary and like all stuff like that. So here we'll have an age, then here we'll have a float salary. So we have a float salary, and then we have we'll just say we have int main. So we have void main. This example uses an int main, so we'll just change that here. So that's pretty much it. Like, our struct just has 3 fields in it. It has an ID number, an age, and a salary. So each person can have like an ID number, they can have an age and a salary. So each one will have pretty much all of that stuff. So in our main function, don't forget the semicolon at the bottom, and then we'll have here we'll say that we want to initialize a struct. So we'll say we have a struct, and we're gonna call it, we want our database struct. We want to call or reference our database struct, and we'll just call this one employee. I'm going to say, okay, well, this employee has, we're going to say, okay, well, we have an employee. We're going to call dot operator to access our fields. So we're going to say, okay, well, we have I guess it did it alphabetically. But we're going to say, okay, well, it sorted it alphabetically. If you can see this in the C line sense, it has like age first, ID/number, and salary. If you can't see that, that's alright. So we'll just say, I'm not going to hit enter. So we'll say, okay, we want our employee.id number. We want to reference that. And we're going to say, okay, we want that to equal to 1. And we're going to say, okay, well, we want to reference the employee.age, and we're going to set that to 22, or point that to 22. The value 22 as an int. Then we're going to say, okay, well, we want to set the employee's salary. So we want employee, we're going to call the dot operator, and then salary. And I'm going to set that to like 12,000 just because he's a student or she's a student, and that's all that she makes for now. So that's alright, it's grocery money. So then now we're going to say a printf statement. Then we're going to say we have the employee ID, and we're going to set that to a format specifier. So we're going to say, okay, well, employee ID points to the is equal to the format specifier D. I'm going to say age is equal to the format specifier D. And finally, we're going to say specify D. And here we'll just say and salary is equal to the format specifier 7.2. So it's like 7 digits with 2 decimals, I think. 2 zeros, trailing zeros after the decimal, F, which means float. So now after all that, outside the string we'll pass in the actual data. So we'll say, okay, we want employee dot ID. You can do that to pass it in. Unless I'm getting red. Why is that red? Okay, so there's no thing called ID. Okay, right. So we have ID number, employee ID number. That should be blue, shouldn't it? No, okay, never mind. That's like the first time I've seen the purpley blue color on this thing. Because before I was using the Apple theme, which isn't that good. This one's okay, but like this theme, it's better. I don't know. It's like it's kind of weird. Like they have these like this brown color with like this with like yellow and green at the top. It doesn't really match as good, but I think the purpley blue kind of looks better. At least they have it set to only struct, so that's okay. So then now we have employee ID number. This is like their dark mode or their night mode, the built-in one. So it's alright. So then now we have employee ID number. We'll pass in employee.age, employee.age, and then finally we'll pass in employee.salary. So you don't really need to debug anything here. It's pretty straightforward. So like we have our struct at the top. We could just see what's happening. But that's how you define a struct, and that's how you pretty much create a class where you can create another employee. We could say that's employee 1, which we'll probably do. Well, we don't really need to do that, but you can, or maybe we can. But we have employee. Great, my Wi-Fi thing came up. Okay, so we have struct gets put the struct gets put above the main function with the semicolon after the bracket. Your name of the struct, then we call the name struct again with the name that we created. We call whatever we want. Then to set the fields, we call the name, not of the struct, but the object, basically the object name. Then we say, okay, once we take the object name, we call the dot operator to set the fields to whatever we want. Just make sure the types match, like int, and float should be matching. And then here we're just printing out what the fields are. So I think again I'll have to actually debug it to show you guys what's happening because of the glitch. It's not printing anything to the output screen. I need to run it in external console. So let's just start that. So we have our employees, no, okay, so it didn't really show us our struct in the local variables. Okay, so we have pretty much at this point, it just knows that we defined a struct database employee, which has an ID number, an age, and a salary. That's what it knows, which is good that it picked that up. Then here we're just setting the ID number to 1, the age to 22, and the salary to like 12,000. And then we're just printing out what the values are. And you should see that in your external console. It should look like a window separate from this if you're running an external console. VS Code doesn't debug too well. That's why I'm not using VS Code, because in some methods it was just skipping them out. It wouldn't even step into them. This does a good job of stepping into everything. So you should see that it printed it out. So maybe we can just set 2, so we could just call this employee 1. So now we've created a struct database employee 1. So our struct's name is database, and our employee's name is employee 1. What is it doing with that stupid thing? I'm like dragging it, it's like changing everything. Alright, so we have that, so we have employee 1. So now I'm just changing everything to employee 1 so I could show you the difference with employee 2. Alright, so let's try not to make any errors here. So we'll have struct, we'll call database again. We'll call employee 2. This feels like object oriented. I'm like, yeah, I'm back into object oriented. Back on the real stuff. Honestly, that's what it feels like when I'm writing structs. So now, okay, so now we have, we'll call employee 2, and we'll just set the ID here. ID number is set to 2, I guess. And then we'll say employee 2 dot age. Let's just say that guy's like 40 something, or girl. So employee 2 dot age is set to 40. And we'll just set their salary, so we'll call employee 2, we'll use a dot operator again to access the salary. We'll just say that's like the boss, and he's making like 100,000. It's a small company, let's just say that. Alright, let's say she's a girl, so she's a boss girl and she's making $100,000. And she's gonna give like some of her salary to her worker. And we'll just say, okay, so we're just gonna print out the values here. So we'll just call the printf function, and we'll just copy all this stuff in, because that format string's kind of annoying. Oops, I copied too much. So just take that. You can type it out if you want. I usually like typing them out just because the C formatting strings are, I don't like them at all, to be honest. It's kind of a pain. So we'll say, okay, well that's employee 1 ID. And we'll say, okay, this is employee 2 ID. And we have the ID, the age, and the salary. And we'll say, okay, well this one we want. That should be outside the quote, actually. What's wrong with that? Employee 2. Oh, there's a slash there. Okay. Slash there. Okay, so here we're going to call employee 2.id number, employee 2.age, and employee 2.salary. With a semicolon, don't forget that. And that should be everything. So we basically called our struct to create 2 different objects, and the employee object 1 has 3 different fields, which are different than employee 2's. The employee 2 object has the same fields with different data inside. So we'll just save that, and then we'll run it again. So we have pretty much employee 1. No, now we have employee 2, it's telling us. So we can see in our local variables we have employee 1 with all the data set correctly. Now we have our database, our struct database employee 2 created. And now we're changing the fields to something different, and you can see that the ID was different from the first one, or employee 1. The age was different, and the salary was different from employee 1, so they're different. We have 2 objects here, and that's it. And it was printed to our external console, which we probably should have had a new line or something. So we had employee 1 ID, age, salary, and then we have employee 2 ID, age, and salary. So we could just actually put a new line here if you really want to space it out, and a new line here too, just in case we start growing our company. So that's pretty much it. So hopefully guys you understand structs, and if we'll be working on structs and pointers in the next example. So if you guys want to see more videos, you can subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Thanks.